All right, it's here. This is 22-3, and yes, this is the workout that fucked me up a little bit that you saw on the Cross the Game site. This one does bite a little bit, but there's gonna be some pretty cool tips here that will help you. For most of us, this is about managing our high skill gymnastics with the pull-ups, chest to bar, and bar muscle ups. So we're gonna touch a little bit on the pull-ups and the gymnastic movement first, what to do if you don't have bar muscle ups yet, and how you should attack this, okay? And then we'll go over some thruster tips, which makes a big difference, and then the general game plan. So first up, the pull-ups, the chest to bar, and the bar muscle ups. Number one, no matter what, you need to avoid failure. You need to choose when you break your set rather than be forced to break a set because you hit failure. So on the gymnastic portion here, 1000%, you need to always leave at least one rep left in the tank, unless you're doing singles and then you're just on the struggle bus and strap up. So if you can do multiple reps in a row, more power to you, but just keep in mind that going a little bit slower, taking more time in the beginning rounds and leaving more gas for the muscle up later is definitely a good thing. You don't want to blow up here in the very beginning on the pull-ups. So when we're doing this, if we're doing singles, so if you, at this point, the biggest piece of advice that I'm gonna give you is how you can get effective singles if you're like not able to do chest to bar, regular pull-ups, or bar muscle ups. The best way to get as much hip drive and as much power to come up to the bar as possible is by jumping into your rep. Now, the way that we do this, if you don't know already, there's the hollow and the arch positions that we go through for the kipping pattern to get up to our pull-ups and muscle-ups and everything. If we can create a lot of momentum and get a serious amount of tension to drive up to the bar, it's gonna be simply easier. So when you're doing singles, rather than just hanging on the bar and doing a million swings then trying to do a rep, that burns a lot of energy and a lot of time, and sometimes we really feel out of rhythm. So this jump-in method, you start slightly behind the pull-up bar. So if you can't quite tell, here is the frontal plane or the mid-plane of the pull-up bar here. And I'm gonna stand roughly a foot or so behind the pull-up bar, right where I'm at, okay? Now, I'm gonna jump up into a hollow position and grab the bar in a hollow. So my hands and feet will be in front of my torso. That's where I'm gonna grab the bar. That will then swing me through into a big arch. And now I have a lot of tension to release, pop the hips, and come up to my first pull-up, bar muscle up, or muscle up, okay? What this looks like is this. Jump up, hands and feet in front, get into a big swing, and we go. Okay? So that creates a lot of tension. Now, a couple of things that will take away from that tension are bent knees and spread feet. When we're trying to create a lot of tension across the frontal plane, if we start bending your knees a lot and getting a huge amount of bend, that bleeds the tension. You won't have as much pop from the hips. The next thing that bleeds it is letting your feet spread way apart in the backswing when you're in the arch. If your feet are way far apart, you are diminishing the frontal plane tension, okay? So feet together, I always think about like pretty toes, feet together, point your toes, and then really work in that arch to keep everything nice and tight, and then you'll have more power to come up. If you're not really sure on how the hip drive should really work here, the best way to go about this, if we're warming up the hip drive, is here. So we're gonna pretend you have the pull-up bar in your hands, you're in this hollow position, and then you are going to quickly go feet down, hips up in one motion. Boom, here, fast. That's exactly how we can envision popping your hips on the pull-up bar. So as we get into our big hollow position and we're going around the bar, we're ready to use the hips, you are going to pop your hips up, heels down, and pull to the bar. So if you're not really sure about that hip pop and you see like when somebody does a bar muscle up and it just looks like they explode up there, this is the hip turnover that they're using, and practicing in this a floor supported position can really help you understand that. Okay, so one more time, if I'm gonna be doing, let's say a chest to bar, I don't quite have them, I can do a pull up, but the chest to bars are hard. Going in singles and getting this big hip drive and really bringing the bar all the way to your chest, this jump in method is a really good trick. Feet in front, big arch, boom, pull up to the bar. Okay, that was a little bit behind, but you get the idea with that jump in, and definitely practice that because it will make you a lot more efficient. In the bar muscle up, so I have pull-ups, I have chest to bar, I understand now the hip drive a little bit, but how can I quite get that bar muscle up? A couple of quick tips on the rotation aspect is you need to start stacking your elbows, your wrists, and your knuckles. If I go to do this bar muscle up, and I have the best hip drive in the world, and I try to pull up to the bar, and my arms are like this, my wrists are back, this is gonna block me. I have nowhere to go, and I'm just gonna get up to do a pull-up, or to try to do the bar muscle up, and I'm gonna get stuck with my chest in the bar. It looks like this. Can't quite get it, because everything was still down, okay? In that exact same setup, if I can simply throw my elbows and knuckles down on top of the bar, that changes your position entirely. Way different. If my elbows were down and my wrists were cocked back, I would have just been in the pull-up position again. So getting the elbows and knuckles to rotate on top of the bar, huge deal. Chicken wing. If you're stuck in the chicken wing, the reason you chicken wing is because you don't have space. So if you can come from the side here, Dennis.
Yeah.
So when I'm going to chicken wing or going up for a bar muscle, if I pull up too soon, so I'm right here at the bar, if I pull up too soon, I have no room to get around the bar, so I have to kind of go one arm and then the other arm because there's not enough room between me and the bar. My elbow, my forearm basically, I have to have enough space between me and the bar to let both forearms be straight to go around and on top at the same time. If I'm closer than my forearm, now I'm forced to pick a side and then walk the other side over. So if we got the chicken wing effect going on, really focus on pushing down through your palms, pressing down to the bar, getting around the bar longer, all the way till you can see over the bar, then snap forward. If you try to pull up too soon, that's when you get blocked and you start doing the chicken wing. The goal is to end up at the belly on the bar here. When we're starting muscle ups, we always see, like, you guys watch the open announcement and you see Tola, who's just a boss and he's just absolutely landing at walkout. That's cool, but that's not really how your first rep's gonna go for 99.9% of us. So instead of trying to envision yourself landing at the top of the muscle up, try to envision yourself landing on your belly. So if you need to kind of get a jumping version going here, to envision that turnover of how it should feel, the way this is gonna look, it's like this. So I'm gonna take my box, I'm gonna envision the same exact movement pattern, my feet are gonna be directly under, I'm gonna come through into the big arch, this is definitely too short, or too tall. No. So I'm gonna envision coming forward, getting into my big arch, coming around the bar, and then as I'm getting behind, I'm keeping my arms straight, and then at the last minute, as I'm jumping up, I'm gonna try to flop over and land over there. My goal isn't to end up here. My goal is to end up way down over there. So as I come over this bar, boom, I'm trying to land here. Now I can help myself up to the top, and that's gonna be the easiest part. But if you try to make your goal to land straight up top, you're not gonna be able to get that bar muscle up when you do it unassisted. So really focus on landing with your belly on top of the bar. Get here, then you can worry about getting up on top. I think that's enough about our bar muscle ups now. Thrusters. This is a tip that I actually, from watching Froning, when you watch Froning do thrusters, he will have his thumb actually behind the bar in a suicide grip. And this is the only movement that I do with the suicide grip with my thumbs behind. I don't jerk like this, but for some reason for me, I tried it and it really helped the thruster, is with the suicide grip this way. You can absolutely still have your thumb wrapped, but try it. And if you like your thumb behind, for me, I feel like it makes it a little bit easier transition to go into the press phase of the thruster. No matter what your grip position is, it's important that you guys maintain a solid front rack to where your shoulders are not the supporting force here. So if I take my hands off, the bar stays exactly where it is, okay? That's important, because now all the weight is supported by my chest and my center of gravity, rather than supported by my forearms and shoulders, okay? So we have a good front rack. One of the biggest faults that I see on thrusters for new people is trying to sit back. The first movement when you go to do this, you do have to bring your hips back a little bit. But if you can envision yourself sitting straight down, we're gonna be able to maintain an upright torso. If you keep sitting your hips back, you're just gonna get falling forward and you're gonna lose that front rack position. So one thing that I would envision here is that when you do your thruster, you must, it's imperative to let your knees come forward. If your knees do not come forward, that means you are going to have to let something else come forward, and that's gonna be your chest, and you're gonna end up in this position. So let your knees come forward, sit straight down, maintain that vertical torso, and you'll be able to have a really good leg and hip drive up top. Finally on the thrusters, when do you break these? You break these when you need rest or when your reps dictate rest. So I think you should do these in as big a sets as possible without blowing up. So, I mean, as a blanket statement, I can't say everyone should do 5s or 7s or whatever because everyone's so different. But when you need to break is when you start struggling for reps. So if my plan, let's say for the set of 21, is to do 11 and 10, and I go through the 11 and I'm like, shit, that was kind of hard. And then I go to the set of 10 and 5 reps in, I'm struggling and pressing and pausing at the top, holding, breathing, holy shit, here we go. I might as well have taken a quick break, right? So you don't get anything out of that. All you're doing is taking way more energy than you need. So if you find yourself like having pity parties and taking rests in the middle of holding a barbell, you'd be way better off resting with that freaking bar on the ground. So if you need rest, get real rest. Don't try to rest while holding a barbell. So let that kind of dictate your sets. The breathing pattern is crucial here. On the thruster, you have to control your breathing. I think that your best bet is to exhale during the squat and the drive and inhale once the bar is overhead and you're locked out. Because believe it or not, it's a lot easier to breathe with the bar overhead than it is with it sitting on your neck and your throat, okay? So exhaling, inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, right? So breathing patterns can be crucial there. Other than that, as far as the sets go, we'll just read. All right, the double unders in this are pretty straightforward. You gotta do double unders. The quick tips, if you're not really good with these or you don't have them yet, is definitely to hit some singles first. So if you just try to go immediately into the first double, doesn't work so good. So definitely hit some singles. When you do your singles, start thinking about where your wrists are. A good rule of thumb here is that you need to have some bend in your elbows. If your elbows are totally locked out, it's really difficult to use your wrists. Like imagine writing your name on a whiteboard with your arm totally straight. You'd be screwed, right? You need to have that bend in your elbow to have a little bit more of the fine-tuning ability with your wrist and your hand. So when I grab this jump rope handle, I'm gonna grab with my thumb and forefinger first, and then just kind of lay my other fingers across with a very, very loose grip. They're just there for moral support. These two are the money makers, okay? When I'm jumping, small circles are fast circles with my wrist. The bigger your circles are with your arms, the slower that's gonna be. So really focus on having small circles, and then when you wanna go to that double, just jump a little bit higher and pass the rope under twice. It's pretty straightforward here. This is one of the things that, you know what, it just takes time to develop. And if you have to do singles and just struggle through them in this, struggle through them, but try not to nuke this. Don't overthink this one. Rotate your hands fast, give yourself a little bit more height to get that rope under twice. If you have double unders, this is pretty much a negligible point of this workout if you have the double unders down well. But if you're still working on these, something that I like to do in the middle of a workout is to break it up in sets that I'm confident with. So if you're like, hey, I know I'm not gonna go unbroken, but I don't know how many sets I'm gonna do, rather than going and have negative reinforcement with missing all the time, I would try to put it to where it's like, okay, I know I can always do sets of 5. And then you just do your sets of 5 with regimented breaks in between. And that way you have a positive reinforcement loop, and it's not like every single time you start a set, you miss, you get pissed off, you whip yourself, and you start going downhill. So I'd break on purpose, but if you're doing singles, hit some singles, like singles with the double unders, do some singles first, and then try that double under attempt, and we just gotta trudge through this one. Recap on this one, the pull-ups, be smart. have to keep reps in the tank. Do not hit failure. If you're at singles, the jump in method is a great way to go about it. For your muscle ups, make sure you get around the bar far enough so you can go both arms at the same time and not have the chicken wing. And really focus on getting your belly on top of the bar. This is your end goal, not this. And that will really help you to get over the bar and not get so caught up in trying to keep rising up too early. Get over the bar first, then we can come up. Thrusters, find that breathing pattern of exhaling during the squat and the drive and inhaling as the bar is overhead. And just don't go so slow on those at any given point. Don't be stubborn. If you're going so slow that you're resting with the bar overhead or in your front rack, you might as well just drop that shit, take some real rest, and come back to it. Other than that, let's let this one hurt a little bit, guys, and let's close out the open with a bang.